Well, welcome back to the last episode of the AFGC Future Leaders Forum Leadership Q&A on the power and impact of mentoring. This week, we have Albertus Lombard, Senior Marketing Manager for Mondelez International, who has been mentored by Lauren Fildes for some time, who we spoke to last week. Welcome, Albertus.
Thanks, Chris. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We've been talking about mentoring quite a bit over the last few weeks, and I'd love to ask you the same questions that I asked Amanda and Lauren, and get your insight and perspective. Can I just start by asking you, what have you seen as the key advantages to establishing a mentoring partnership?
Yeah, I think it's quite important, the word mentioning relationship and partnership within a mentoring agreement, because with any relationship, there should be benefits to both parties, which is the mentee and the mentor. Now, it doesn't really matter where you are in your career, whether you're just starting off or where you're actually a lot more of a senior leader within the organization. I believe everybody can get a little bit of help within their own careers. I think when we speak about the advantages is the advantages sway as well, depending on where you are within your career and what you actually need from that mentoring relationship. But from a mentee perspective, I just think it's an amazing opportunity for you to get an additional point of view and learn from the experiences from whoever your mentor is. They've made mistakes, they've had amazing successes, and it's just an opportunity for you to learn from this, to grab as much knowledge from the person that's in front of you, and really work on honing your own functional skill set on the one side. But then I think on the other side, there's also a big element of honing your own self-awareness and really improving that element of your emotional maturity within the business. And, you know, a lot of the times we look at a problem and a challenge that we have within organization is literally 6 inches in front of us every single day. And although we all like to be objective, we all have some natural biasness, whether it's from personal experiences, different cultural differences. I'm a South African in Australia. I just think it is, when you have a mentor, it also really helps to take you out of that day-to-day and provide quite an objective point of view, and really see a bigger picture that sometimes you're missing, and really helps you in that regard to see a bigger picture as opposed to just focusing on the task at hand.
That's right.
I think I mentioned, okay, so that's from a mentee perspective, but with a relationship, if you're dating somebody, there needs to be mutual benefits, otherwise it's not necessarily going to last that long. I think then from a mentor perspective, so in my situation, it's quite interesting because I'm a mentee and I am going into more of a mentor position, which is quite an interesting space to be in. But as a mentor, I think there is an element of personal reward and feeling quite self-fulfilled if we're quite selfish in what drives us, and really seeing somebody progress and being quite positively progress within an organization. But I think it's actually more than that. We work in a massive multinational company, and you get exposure to so many different languages. I mentioned before cultural differences, and as a leader of one-to-one or even your management style on one-to-one, it really helps you as a mentor to adapt your communication style, to actually get a greater sense of understanding and empathy towards different individuals that overall just hones you into a better leader as well as manager within an organization.
That's great. In terms of you personally, do you have a personal example of when perhaps you faced a decision and Lauren or another mentor helped you get to the right conclusion?
Yeah, wow. I think I've been quite fortunate in the fact that during my career, I've actually had a couple of mentors that helped me. So a little bit of background, I've got a finance background, and I decided finance is boring and I really wanted to go into marketing and find out what makes consumers tick. And I started off my career knowing very little about marketing, to be honest. And there was really a marketing manager within my own organization that first of all, I aspire to. We had the same values, we had the same but we liked each other, which I think really helps if you want a mentor, because it should be an organic relationship and not necessarily something that's forced, depending on who you are as a person. And I think it was really important there for me to hone that functional skill set. And I think the mentor helped it. Yes, I had my boss, and my boss really helped me, but my boss was with me in my day-to-day. And I think my mentor really, really, again, took me out of a lot of the day-to-day, once again, as I mentioned before, and really helped me see things a little bit more objectively and really fast-track my career, because this is a point of view that I necessarily wouldn't have seen or known about in honing my functional skills. And I mentioned there are so many different examples. I then moved over to another country. So I moved from South Africa into Singapore, and it was a new country. It was new people. I didn't know anybody. And I actually decided, well, let me join a marketing body. And the interesting thing is, things flowed from there. I met a couple of individuals. It was quite nerve-wracking walking in, not knowing anybody. Speed dating. I love analogies of dating, so excuse me, but almost like speed dating. And again, I actually gravitated towards somebody that, first of all, I aspired to. I really liked the way they conducted themselves, the way they communicated within specific forums. And that person really helped me in a new country and in a new business to actually build my network and find people that I can actually talk to. So if I had a challenge or I wanted to look for different opportunities, that person could really help me because they were already established in Singapore and already had their networks. So different benefits and different advantages of having mentors. And being a mentee. And then I went to Australia. And the interesting thing about Australia is you guys spoke to Lauren the last time, and I'm basically her mentee. And again, I moved into a new country, a new organization. And the first thing I was told is you need to work on a very confidential project. Now, great challenge. We're all up for challenges and great opportunities in order for us to grow. But the real challenge is if you're working on a confidential project within a new organization, to be able to work your way through a very complex organizational structure, to be able to influence people that hardly know you. Lauren really opened the opportunities for me as a marketing director for me to, first of all, interact with those individuals. Second of all, to guide me and actually help me navigate the different stakeholders based on their KPIs. How do I actually hone on my influence skills to ensure that a confidential project that nobody's supposed to know about, that I can actually get that onto a table in quite a strategic way, as opposed to just going through the business cycles, so to speak.
That's great. I mean, we talked about the fact that a mentor can fast track a career, especially if they're internal, but we really haven't touched on the external mentors and their ability to, as you say, gain new insight, but also potentially even new opportunities, which lends itself to the next question in terms of establishing a mentor relationship. How did you go about it when I guess internally in South Africa and Singapore and Australia, but also externally in terms of walking into the room? As you say, it's fairly terrifying if you're going into a new room in a new country and not knowing anybody. How did you go about it?
Yeah, I think that the first one, and to be honest, it's probably not as calculated, but the first one is really understanding where do I need to develop and where do I actually want to grow, and what help do I need in order to get there. And I think once you take stock of that and just really internalize a little bit in yourself, and if you don't know how to do it, you can ask your peers. I mean, it's very easy for me to go into a new country. I already know I need to build a network, but it's really to internalize and find out where do I see my own developmental areas of where I actually want to be. It's much easier to do it internally, to be honest. There's always somebody that you can aspire to and somebody that you like and somebody that you can build a relationship with, because I think it is important, that relationship building aspect, and for the mentoring to be quite organic. But then we also need to put in the effort internally. So it's not just a passive thing. It's not me just sitting back and saying, I want to be mentored, just give me all your information. But it's always being active in that relationship. So I think for me, sorry, and I'm digressing a little bit, but I think for me, from an internal perspective, it's understand what are the things that you actually want to develop. Find somebody that you like, potentially, somebody that's got the same set of values, but really somebody that you can respect, but also trust that they've got your best interest at heart, and forge a relationship with that person. In my opinion, it shouldn't be a forced relationship, but it takes a little bit of effort. Again, like any relationship, it needs to come from both sides, and there needs to be benefit to both. I think from an external perspective, probably a little bit more challenging. It's quite difficult, and I wouldn't recommend going to a stranger and saying, hey, do you want to be my mentor? It's not picking up a girl at a bar. Which, first of all, even if that person is quite inspirational, they also have some of their time constraints and kind of who are you? An interesting thing, though, is I think in the current world of social media and interest groups and industry bodies, it's just so much easier if you're willing to take that leap. It's so much easier to start conversations with individuals and find out who do you actually click with, and then how can that person help you progress, but also how do you add value to that relationship. And again, it's not as calculated because we're talking about people as well, but it's just an interesting view on how you can start building a network of potential mentors that you can initially approach. I'm still talking to my mentor back in South Africa, and that was 10 years ago. So it just shows you that it is a relationship that lasts, and it's not just a once-off developmental area, but it's really a long-term relationship where you can pull from that person's knowledge and still do that, well, in my case, till today.
Yeah, well, I'm the same. I talked about last week that I have the same mentor I had 20 years ago, and externally, it's a great point because I've certainly found that if you come across somebody that shares your values or shares something you're passionate about, and you send them a note, A, it's flattering, but B, they want to know people that are in their tribe, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I always say to young people, there's no harm in sending a note. If they don't reply, they don't reply. But if they do, it actually could be the start of something pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and you mentioned tribes. I mean, the day and age of social media, tribes are everywhere to be found. It's joining in them and finding those like-minded people to connect with. I'm using this as an example. In Singapore, it started literally with commenting on people's posts and then being directed to a society where there is that similar interest group in order for me to start building that network. So yeah, 100% agree.
That's brilliant. Albertus, thank you for the insight. This wraps up the leadership Q&A on mentoring. We spoke to Albertus, Lauren, and Amanda. I hope you saw the power of mentoring on each of them, but also the connectivity that happens when one person mentors another and then mentors another. And as Albertus says, he's entering the journey of being a mentor as well. So a big congratulations again to Alyssa and Sam and the team at the AFGC for putting the biggest Future Leaders Forum on in the history of the organization. Feels like we're in a great place at the moment. Be safe and stay well, and look forward to seeing you at next year's Future Leaders Forum.